So we are picking up exactly where we left off in part 1. If you've missed part 1, I will link it up in the upper right hand corner for you. Alright, I found this fabric and it's really sturdy. It's very soft. It's kind of see-through, but it is very sturdy. And I thought that might look good. So what I'm going to start off with is get these edges off of here because I want it to be real smooth, and then get a piece cut down to fit for my inside spine, my hidden spine or blind spine. I've heard it called a lot of different things. So I need a piece that is 8 1/4 inches long, and I need it to be 3 inches in width. So actually I'm gonna give it 3 1/2 inches, just so that I have enough coming over and onto the covers. So we need to make sure I maintain my 1 inch on either side. That's 2 3/4. Exactly what I need for my signatures to be sewn in. So the next thing I want to do is I'm going to do a 3-hole panel stitch, which is very simple. I am not one of those people that measure it out. I just kind of go with the flow, making sure that I have my 3 signatures evenly spaced. I like to start with the back signature. Yep, that should be good. All right, and so now once again, I'm going to pull out my wide-eyed needle, my dowel, my cork board, and I'm going to use, I think I'm going to use some DMC floss on that. Hold on just a minute. I'm choosing DMC floss because I want something that's a little bit softer for going through this fabric, and I think I'm going to go with this chocolate. I just hope that I have enough. So when you're sewing your signatures in, you want 3 lengths, your signature, and a hair. And I think I'm going to have enough for this. The other thing I am going to do, because I want it to go smoothly through this, I am going to run it through a waxer. This is just beeswax. It will help keep everything moving really nice and smoothly. I like to go through the waxer 3 times. I feel like that's the perfect amount of wax on the thread. And you can see that that's a lot finer of a thread than our binding floss was. I can also use slightly smaller of a large-eyed needle. And if you want your thread to appear on the inside, then you start on the inside. You go into the inside. If you want it to be on the outside, then you start from the outside. I want mine to be on the outside of this so it's hidden. So you're gonna find your center. I can see my little marks that I made on the opposite side. So I want my signature to be sewn just in from that. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm going to poke my 3 holes. I want to make sure that it catches these smaller ones at least once, possibly twice. So about 1 inch, and let's see what that is. You usually want to go about 1 inch in, so you can see it's really not gonna, I'm not gonna see where that comes out through that. It's not gonna make a mark there. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to poke this one so I can get myself established on this fabric. I'm gonna poke it out and I'm just gonna kind of mark it. This is on the side that's gonna glue to or be not seen, so I'm not worried about my marks showing. So we're gonna come with our thread from the inside, from the outside edge where I've marked in through our hole, catching all the signatures in that center. And usually this first signature is that you're sewing in is usually going to be the most finicky because you don't have things established yet. It's hard to clip these when your pages are so many different sizes, but I found that these really long paper clips are usually helpful. Sometimes they're just in the way. So then we're going to go to the top hole and come out, and then we're going to go all the way to the bottom, and this clip is not skewed that. There we go. So you can see this thread is on the left side of the strand. So what I'm going to do is come through the center hole. I do not want to split this thread. That's one of the reasons why I like to use the beeswax and coat my DMC floss in it, because it will help you from doing that. And you're going to come out, so the right side of that thread, of this center thread. You're going to pull it a little bit so it's taut, and you're going to tie a square knot. You want to make sure that it's not real wiggly and it is tight. So this one's a little loose. So I'm going to pull those taut and I'm going to tie it in a square knot. Pulling tight but not buckling. You don't want anything to buckle. And I like to leave these strands long so that they get held in. And now we're going to move to our second signature. Those have been bound in. The test of this is to check how it falls in our front and back covers. Okay, so this is the test to see how we did on the binding of that, like so. All right, so we're within our cover area. So our next step is to glue our outside spine to our covers. So we gotta measure and make sure that we're leaving enough room for our signature. And as I recall, it should have been about an inch that we're gonna come over. Yep, it's an inch. You don't want it too tight, it'll pinch. So now for this, so I'm gonna glue the covers to the front, the covers to the spine using E6000. It's a pretty heavy duty glue. It handles weight, etc. The thing I don't want to happen is I don't want the spine to fall off the front or the back cover with use. So I have a tendency to want to go a little overboard and use something like E6000, and it's just what I'm comfortable with. You do what you feel is best for what you've got going on and what you feel like this is going to be mailed to lots of people and they're going to be arting in it, and so I want to make sure that it's gonna stand up to that. E6000 is kind of a stinky glue, so if you're sensitive to that, they do have a new one on the market that is low or no, I can't remember, smell. Get that clipped, and then I'm gonna come in and do the front cover. I'm kind of rubbing it into the fabric. The other thing you want to make sure is that your covers match, they line up. So these line up. So I'm going to lay this back down. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to heat tack this. E6000, similarly to Fabri-Tac, will heat tack. So I'm going to get it tacked up with some heat. Alright, I am ready to start gluing this in. Once again, I'm going to use my PVA glue. And I'm going to glue the center piece down first. Get my alignment all set, and then I'm going to glue this flap and then go back and glue the other one. I am going to trim these strands just a hair. They're too long. They're like coming down below the bottom. So I'm going to get those trimmed off. Get it positioned where I want the center to be on the outside spine. And begin gluing, starting with the center and then going out to the one flap and then doing the other. I did forget to mention, once I get the center of the spine of the signatures glued to the exterior spine, I like to go in with the bone folder and really make sure there's no gaps. I want those two fabrics to connect with each other and bond with that glue. When I'm gluing the flaps, I like to glue from the inside, so the underside of the fabric to the exterior fabric of the cover, and then I like to come over it with more of that PVA glue. So I want to make sure I don't let that back page or the front page adhere to that, so I will be using a method of keeping those separated as it goes through the drying process. All right, so this needs to dry, and I'm propping it up with this not so sturdy clothespin so that the pages don't get glued. To each other. There we go. All right, and we'll come back and reinforce anything that needs reinforcing. So this now needs to dry completely. Come back and reinforce anything that needs reinforcing, and then we can start on the cover. All right, it's time to work on the cover, and I have two things in mind here. I'm thinking about using some blue Bister. Now this is a product by PowerTex. I'll link a video up to the upper right hand corner kind of explaining it, and I was thinking of doing some background with that And then coming in with a piece of this. This is fisherman's net, for a net that you pull your fish in with. And I've cut off a piece, and I was thinking of using this over that background. So I'm going to come in with this blue blister along with this StencilGirl stencil called Whimsical Waves. And of course, as always, I will link all the products listed down below, with a baby wipe. I'm going to just come in with this and get a bit of this onto that background. I'm not sure, this paper is pretty slick. It's a vintage blueprint, nicely patinaed with age, and I don't want this to be super obvious, but I do want some of that coming through. Oh yeah. All right, so I'm going to do that on the back side as well. So on this, I think I'm going to soak it in some PowerTex Universal Medium, so it will glue onto here, but also it will become stiff. And it's a stiffener, a fabric stiffener. So I think that's what I'm going to do, is soak this in some of that. Now this is the translucent, and it will keep this its natural color, and that's really what I want. I want to get this as flat as possible so it'll stick. And I really don't want it poking out from this edge or this edge. Top is fine. I don't really want to glue it to this fabric, because that, if we're opening and closing this, then this is going to end up cracking or making it hard to open. So I'm just kind of loosely draping it over. So now it's going to start sticking as it starts to set up. But any place that it hasn't glued or stuck, it may not stick at all. We might have to come in and glue it. That's fine. I think I'm going to put something over the top of this, and I just want this kind of peeking out. So I'm going to let this dry naturally. Might get these to kind of dangle down a little bit. Okay. And I'm going to let that dry naturally. All right, so this has completely dried, and this is stiff over here, but it's movable, and that's kind of what I wanted, because it makes it much more flexible for the cover moving. I have been experimenting with doing some stencil work, and this is what I came up with. And I'm going to trim this out and use this, but I'm thinking about doing something else in the background. So I'm going to get this trimmed down to see. Look for this video in June. It should be the Technique Tuesday coming out in June. so you can see more about that. Go ahead and subscribe to my channel if you want to be notified about that. Oh yeah. So I think I need to layer this a little bit more. I have this fabric that I got from Tina Walker's Etsy shop, and I'll link the Etsy shop down below. I don't know if this fabric is still available. I'm just kind of auditioning the fabric, trying to find placement and just testing different options out here. So I really like this placement, but I feel like I need to add something more to this cover. Somewhere I have a fishing lure I found. The yellow kind of goes with this. I think I'm going to age this a little bit. And to do that, I'm going to take a heavy-duty file sandpaper and distress part of the top of it where the enamel is. And then I'm going to come in with some patina. This is a vintage patina. And I'm just going to clean off the surface with a wet baby wipe, get all that I sanded. And then I'm going to just dribble this patina over the edges and everywhere that I've distressed it. Move it around with that baby wipe and then let it sit. And once it's sat for a while, I am going to come in and just do some touch-ups here and there. Yeah, I think that's better. I'm going to let that set and then put a sealer over it, and then we'll start to get this all put together. While this is drying, I'm going to distress the edges of this using my Zutter. And now that that's all distressed on the edges, I'm coming in with some archival distress ink in Vintage Photo and getting my edges. I just want the starkness of the white gone. I would rather come in with a brown that will kind of go with the cover as it is. So I'm just going to go around the edges of this. And I'm also going to use that around the edges of the cover, front cover and back cover as well. Tie it all in together. Okay, the way I'm going to glue this is I'm going to glue it in layers. I'm going to glue this fabric to this paper, this watercolor paper, with some Fabri-Tac. Okay, and then I'm going to glue this to here because I don't think I have an eyelet small enough. Yeah, that's not small enough. But what I could do, set an eyelet and then string it. Do I want it to dangle? Okay, we'll come back to this. I like the eyelets. It's gonna be a little tough getting through this fabric. Okay, I'm gonna glue this down and come back to this. I'm gonna glue this down with E6000 because it's pretty heavy watercolor paper, and I'm going to a very textured surface. So I am going to add some pretty big glumps so it will go to the surface of the cover. And I'm coming in a distance so it doesn't squitch out. So now I'm going to put some weight on this to make sure that it gets weighted down. I'm going to let this cure a little bit. So I'm going to let this sit, and then we'll come back and see how we finish this up. I'm not convinced that this is actually going to work on it, but I don't feel like it's done either. So we'll be back. All right, I have decided that the lure is going on. So I have pulled out a jump ring that I'm going to attach it to that upper left eyelet with. So I'm just going to get that opened, added to the eyelet, and then slip the lure onto that. It was pretty fiddly, but in the long run it did work. And then I'm going to add another jump ring to the bottom portion of the lure and add to that a little feather charm. I do in the end decide to glue part of that lure so that the lure itself is not really jiggling around, but that feather can really kind of move around nicely. So I'm going to put a whole bunch of E6000 underneath that and get that secured. All right, so I got that on, and I do kind of want to put a title on this. I don't usually, but sometimes I think it's nice. These uppercase alphabet stamps, wood alphabet stamps in handwriting. I can't remember where I found these. I used water-soluble bistre on this, and my thought was I could pull some of it up and make it a little bit lighter so it doesn't blend in totally here. So as I've alluded to before, I believe in part 1 of this series, that this was going to be a 3-part series based on a collaboration. So the title I'm going to use on this journal is the title of the collaboration, and that is Put a Bird on It. So I'm going to just distress of the edges of this title and get it adhered to the cover. If you want to see the inside pages, then I'm going to link in the upper right hand corner to a video that is the collaboration video with StencilGirl stencils. And I'm going to link that up in the upper right hand corner for you. And so you can see the inside pages themselves. You can see and read more about the collaboration itself, what we all did. Get more details about that. I will have the link to the full collaboration, my collaboration journal pages. We did 3 pages, and I'll show the work I did and show the work that the other collaborators did, and then the finished pages being created. And that will happen in that video. I do apologize because when I first showed you the making of this journal, I did say that this video would be out in April. Unfortunately, this video is coming out later, and I hope you've enjoyed this. Thank you for coming along.